5 years ago, an unknown shooter game on Roblox began to create a sensationality for itself as one of the best developed Roblox shooter games on Roblox. It quickly became one of Roblox's most beloved games of all time. And today, nothing has changed. It still remains known as one of the best Roblox games of all time. Through the many years of development, it's safe to say it is well deserved. This game is Phantom Forces. Phantom Forces at this point is in very early development. Even though the game by today's standards weren't too good, at the time it was game-breaking. Compared to now, the game was very bare bones and only had one gun, which was the M4. Later, they also added a few secondaries into the game too. This included the M9, the M1911, the Glock 17, the Glock 18, MP412 Rex, and the Deagle 44. Arguably, the game being bare bones was a good thing, because it gave stylists years of content that they could add to the game. At this stage, the game was in alpha testing, which could only be accessible for 75 Robux. The content and functionality of the game in alpha was very similar to Call of Robloxia 5, Stylus Studios' game prior to Phantom Forces. During alpha, different firing modes were being tested on for the very first time. A few more things that were being worked on at this current time were shell ejections, gun inspections, wall penetration, bullet drop, and vaulting. None of these being in the prior game, Call of Robloxia 5. The only map at this time was a map that was modeled after Nuketown from Call of Duty Black Ops 1. Eventually, the Crane Site map was introduced, which has been relatively unchanged since its initial release, and still remains in the game. Naturally, in a new and developing game, there will of course be bugs. One of the earliest known bugs in the game had to do with the player model interfering with the default Phantom Forces character, causing players' Roblox accessories to block their vision. However, this didn't ruin the experience, as most players didn't really mind this bug. And they also understood that the game was still in very early development. Another really annoying bug that stuck to the game for many years after this phase was also in the game at the time. If you vaulted over something, there'd be a small chance that your character would go flying into the air, thus dying from fall damage. The only mode was Team Deathmatch, which had no time limit or kill cap. The Phantoms were green while the Ghosts were red, obviously different from today's blue and orange. A player at this time also had an infinite grenade stockpile. At some point, Stylus decided to add another map to the game, Ravad 911. Again, this map has remained relatively unchanged, and still remains in the game to this very day. With this update, a few more guns were added to the game. This includes the MP7, the Remington 870, the AK-12, the AN-94, the C7A2, the G36, the M16A4, the M16A3, the FAMAS, the BFG-50, the VSS Venturas, the Dragunov SVU, and the MK-11. After the Ravad update, the game did not get any more major updates. Soon, Phantom Forces became free, using a new framework, and it went into its open beta stage. This new framework required a full reworking of all weapons, and greatly reduced the number of weapons available in-game. They were being slowly reintroduced over time, however. Re-adding the old alpha weapons now seemed to be a low priority, and finally, in Update 0.12.7, the M4A1 was added to the game to take the M4's former place, with proper name designation. Although the M4A1 for some reason was unlocked at rank 14, whereas now it is unlocked at the default carbine, in Update 0.13.12 they added the M231, which at the time was supposed to be a troll gun. It featured, quote, unusable iron sights and insane time to kill with uncontrollable recoil. Obviously, the gun is way different now in modern day than what it once was. During beta, another gun was also added, the Colt SMG 635. Similar to the M231, it had high fire rate, but it had a quick time to kill. At the time, it was kind of like a better M231, and it wasn't a troll gun. Open beta saw a ton of rebalance changes to tons of guns in the game at the time. In Update 0.13.2, one of the most favorited guns of all time was added to the game. This gun is the Honey Badger. The Honey Badger is a carbine unlocked at rank 62 with a damage range of 33 to 22, which isn't special, but that isn't what made this gun so good. The reason this gun was loved by the masses was because of the satisfaction that the integral suppressor brought to the gun. The sound of the Honey Badger was so satisfying, which led to many YouTubers at the time praising the gun, like Synthesize OG and Petrify TV. In Update 0.13.3, Stylus reduced the reload times for the AS Val, the SR3M, the L22, the L85A2, the L86 LSW, the M60, the Serbu shotgun, the Remington 870, and the KSG-12. This update also brought a small buff to the P90, the M60, the Scar Hammer, the SKS, and the MK11. This is also a super important update for one main feature, a feature that is dreaded by the Phantom Forces community to this day. The BFG's minimum damage was increased to 100, which would cause tons of new players to pre-buy the BFG in the near future. Although the BFG's buff wasn't necessarily a good update, there are many more good updates on the way. In beta, all the AUG variants were added to the weapon pool. This included the AUG A1, the AUG A2, the AUG A3, the AUG A3 Para, and the AUG H-Bar. Also during beta, the classic MP5 and MP5 ST were added into the game. Overall, Phantom Force's beta phase was done pretty well. Not too many bad updates were added, and most crucial bugs that were in the game at the time were now fixed. As Phantom Forces exits beta, we see the first full version of the game released for the first time. In Update 1.0.0, an options menu was added to optimize players' experience with the game. You could now turn off shaders, animations, lighting, and other options were now available to players. Skin customization was also added in Update 1.0.0. So now, you could have a fancy neon skin, and you can also change the textures to your liking. Now, the skins were divided into rarities: common, uncommon, rare, and very rare. Skin trading was now a feature in the game. If you traded in 6 skins of the same rarity for the same case, you can get 1 skin of the next highest rarity. This means if you manage to get 6 very rare skins from the same case, you could trade them in for a legendary melee weapon. This feature still remains in the game, and you can still use the trade-in system. Give it a try. On the topic of cases, All keys and cases are now divided into 5 tiers. The higher the tier, the more expensive the case is, and the better looking the skins are. Another perk of the higher tier skins are that they are more customizable. For example, some of the skins in the tier 5 case are black and white, so you can change them to be whatever color you want. This update also added the advanced stats for every weapon. This allowed players to get an in-depth analysis on whether their attachments are the best for their gun compared to other attachments. Around this time, Phantom Forces had a new Star Wars Rogue One event in-game. This event contained a new map called Base Luna. This map was the only known map in the entire game to contain the railgun, which players could pick up and use. This new map also contained low gravity to make it feel like the player was in space. In Update 1.0.19, the Star Wars event was concluded. In Update 1.0.20, the Intervention, Remington 700, and BFG, thank God, got nerfed. The Intervention can now only one-shot to the torso up to 50 studs. Remington 700 can now only one-hit the torso up to 30 studs. And the BFG 50 can now only one-hit anywhere in the body up to 50 studs. Overall, this update was a pretty good change. In Update 1.2.0, the function to sell skins was finally added. Arguably, this update was needed long before this update was actually added. But better late than never, I guess. Later, in Update 1.3.0, the new Chris Vector was added to the game, which is unlocked at rank 100. The Chris Vector is a fast-firing PDW that has very minimal recoil. This gun was loved by many players, and arguably it was a pretty controversial weapon at the time, because, like the BFG, many low-ranked players would pre-buy this gun, which most high ranks found pretty annoying. And finally, with Update 1.4.6, a bug fix update, Phantom Forces version 1 is finally concluded. Phantom Forces version 2 didn't have as many updates as Phantom Forces version 1, let alone Phantom Forces Beta or Phantom Forces Alpha. But still, it had a few notable updates. In Update 2.0.0, Stylus Studios, the developers of Roblox Phantom Forces, tweaked starter loadouts to be more friendly for newer players to the game. This update also brought a revamped HUD to be more visually appealing, and also a little more user-friendly. During Update 2.0.0, the game also saw the inclusion of the L115A3 sniper rifle, which is now known as the AWM, and the MAC-10. At this time, the Colt LMG was moved to rank 0, becoming the new starter LMG. The M60 was also moved to rank 19 now. Metro Revamp and Crane Sight Revamp were now removed from the map rotation until further notice, and the new revamped Desert Storm was introduced to the map pool. The new revamped Desert Storm was more visually appealing and performed much better gameplay-wise. During this update, every gun got a new revamped gun sound, and many more new sound effects were added to the game for extra immersion. Update 2.0.2 was somewhat minor, although it was a very well received update. This update brought new custom tags for players to buy. The tag was very expensive, and it could be bought for 70,000 credits, but it gave higher ranks something cool and unique to grind for. Later, in Update 2.0.3, new alt-aim was introduced for all LMGs and the G18 in Phantom Forces. The snipers in this update also saw some minor balance changes. The Intervention's main damage was reduced from 90 to 85. The L115A3, now the AWM, had its max damage reduced from 85 to 82. The AWS had its bullet speed reduced from 3000 to 2000, and the SFG-50's random ADS speed was slightly reduced. With this new sniper nerf, a few other guns also got nerfed as well. The Colt LMG got a slightly increased reload time, the MG36 got a raise in damage, and the MAC-10 got added recoil and less damage. Update 2.0.4 added a new suppressor revamp, and it added alt-aim to more pistols. The M9, M1911, G17, Tech 9, and M93R now had an alt-aim mechanic. The MG36 also got another change to its damage, this time being a nerf. Unlike the previous change to the gun, the 2.1.0 update brought a couple new guns to the game. This includes the Henry 4570 and the KS23M. The Dragunov SVU also got its built-in suppressor removed at this time. This update also brought a slight nerf to the shotguns. The KSG got a nerf to its spread and increased damage drop-off for the Remington 870 and KSG. Update 2.1.1 through Update 2.2.1 were minor updates, which takes us up to Update 2.3.0. This update brought a new knife animation system to the game. The in-game characters also saw new lighter uniforms, which were made by Mar. Updated sound effects were also added for the AK guns, the AUG guns, the Henry, the KS23M, and the Intervention. And finally, an experimental FOV slider was added to Phantom Forces. With this update, Phantom Forces version 2 is finally completed. Update 3.0.0 was a massive update for cases and knives. Melee hit detection was improved, and hit detection for knives was improved. This update also brought the new blade range statistic to the game. A new ability was added to melees, so now you could do a headshot with melee weapons. 4 new categories for knife classifications was added to the game. This includes one-hand blades, two-hand blades, one-hand blunt, and two-hand blunt. 2 new melees were also added at this time. This includes the trench mace and the baseball bat. Some new case system changes were also added in this update. Legendary melees are now available in every case, and a random attached skin from the case will now come with the unboxed melee. Even if the said skin is sold, the melee will still remain in the player's available weapon pool. So once the melee is unlocked, the player owns it forever. In Update 3.0.5, Phantom Forces saw a brand new Revad revamp, which was actually disliked by some players because they preferred the look of the old Revad better. Update 3.1.0, the Halloween update, also known as the AK-12 update, brought many new things to the game. This update brought the new AKU-12, AK-12C, and RPK-12, hence where it got the name the AK-12 update. A new case, the Tier 3 Halloween case, was added to the game. Every skin in this case is customizable, so this case quickly became a fan favorite. The long-awaited DB shotgun and the new sawed-off shotgun was added into the game. Unfortunately, in this update the Zip-22 is added to the game. The Zip-22 was made by Stylus Studios to be a joke gun, or just people who want a challenge, because the Zip-22 is made to be the worst gun in the game. The ballistics tracker was rebalanced in this update to show only a maximum of 1 target at a time, and the markers only occurred when the gun was 100% aimed fully in. Most shotguns at this time were buffed for some reason. The KSG-12, KS-23M, and the Subu shotgun got its pump animation time limit reduced, so you could pump in another shell faster than you could before. The KSG and the KS-23M got a slightly increased RPM. The KS-23M as well as the Subu shotgun got a reduced reload time, and the pellet count for the KS-23M was increased from 8 to 9 pellets, making it easier to hit targets. And each shotgun got a minor buff to its spread. Not only the shotguns, but all the pistols got a buff. The M9 and G17 got an ammo reserve buff to 100 rounds, and the M9's minimum damage was changed from 19 to 20. The M9 and the G17 also got a range buff, with the drop-off starting at a further range. The AK-12BR's minimum damage was buffed back to 35, while increasing the gun's recoil to match the 7.62 by 39mm round that it fired. In Update 3.1.2, the new Suburbia map was added to Phantom Forces, and it still remains in the game to this very day. Update 3.2.0, also known as the Pre-Thanksgiving Day update, added the new Dunes map, which once again still remains in the game. The new beloved Groza 1 and Groza 4 were added to the game, with the Groza 1 being more of a medium-range gun, and the Groza 4 being a CQC gun. The AK-12C in this update got a slightly reduced minimum damage output, and it was moved to rank 51. In Update 3.3.0, also known as the Winter Update Part 1, added the new Hecate 2, a heavy sniper rifle. This update also added a new limited time Christmas case, Core 5 case, Wood case, Glaciarite case, and DR case. And skill-based matchmaking was now added to the game based off a player's KDR. In Update 3.4.0, the new 1858 New Army Revolver was added to the game, and the RPK was moved from rank 58 to 54. Update 3.4.1 was a pretty important update because it added the well-loved hollow point and armor-piercing ammo attachments. In Update 3.4.2, the Valentine's Day update added the Dragunov SVDS to the game. Hey Spirals. Update 3.5.2 added the new M45A1 pistol to the game, and with Update 3.6.0, the new Ruins map was added to the game, which is still in the game actually. 3.6.0 also added the new PPSH-41 to the game, and also revamped Suburbia. In Update 3.6.1, Banland was added for exploiters to play with other exploiters, and a new map called Dust was added to the game. However, in Update 3.7.0, Dust was removed from the game and added the MG3KWS. Update 3.7.1 increased the Henry's torso multiplier and also nerfed the Scar Age pretty heavily. The G36, M16A4, and the M4 also each received a nerf in this update. Around this time, the most loved Roblox event of all time, the Ready Player One event, had begun. This allowed players to go in-game and find the hidden Jade Key in Phantom Forces, which was revealed by hints hidden across the maps. But in Update 3.7.2, the event was concluded, and the Scar H was buffed after its heavy nerf previously. Update 3.8.1, also known as the Semi-Auto Shotgun Update, added the Sega 12, DBV 12, and the Spaz 12 shotguns. Later, in Update 3.8.3, the unloved 1858 carbine was added to the game. Update 3.9.0, the Optic Update, now made red dots behave more realistically by tracking the movement of the current equipped gun's barrel. Update 3.10.0 was kinda unpopular. This update added the most hated map in the game, Mirage, which was basically the BFG camper's heaven. Although this update kinda sucked, it added the new FAL 50 battle rifle, which is loved by many players in the game. In Update 3.11.0, the new Rig update was added to the game, and it is still in the current map pool to this day. The next update, 3.12.0, added the new MP40, L2A3, and M3A1. This update also added the Kill Confirmed game mode to the game, so overall, this update was pretty well received. Update 3.13.0 added the new Metabus 6 revolver, the Beowulf TCR, and Beowulf ECR, and changed the Scarl's minimum damage to 25, making it a 4-shot kill at long range. Update 3.14.0, the Halloween update, added yet again another minor buff to the shotguns. And with Update 3.15, a new background menu was added, and thus finally concludes Phantom Forces version 3. Update 4.0.0, the Winter Update, added some new guns to the game. This included the G3, MP1911, AK103, and AK105. A new map was added into the game at this time also, known as Refinery. This map no longer remains in the game for the public, and in Winter Update Part 2, there were 5 new melees added to the game. The Frying Pan, the Longsword, the Brass Knuckles, the Nightstick, and the Tomahawk. Slugs and Flechette had their penetration depth quadrupled for some reason during this update. And in Winter Update Part 3, a new gun was added into the weapon pool, the Stayer Scout, which was loved by most high ranks and sweats. A few new optics were added, the DDHB Reflex OKP-7 and the Barska Electro, all 3 being very loved by the community. Overall, the Winter Update was a pretty nice update. In Update 4.2.0, a new map called Prison Break was added to the game, which has since been renamed twice from Prison Break to Locker to currently Black Site. This map is pretty hated by the community, however, a few guns were added into this update as well. This included the FAL 5063 Para, the SA58 SPR, the MSG90, the MC51 SD, and the Sega 12U. In Update 4.3.0, the HK21 and the FAL Para Shorty were added to the game. Along with the new guns, 2 new ACOG sites were added. This included the TA01 ACOG and the TA11 ACOG. This update also brought a new map to the game, Blizzard, which was made by Wolf Dogs. This map is still in the map pool to this day, and remains relatively unchanged as well. However, jumping to Update 4.4.0, which is a very much hated update to this day, added 3 new weapons, the HK416, which is a very well loved gun to this day, the 5.7, which is one of the worst pistols unlocked at a high rank, and the most hated gun of them all was added to this update, the only AA-12. The AA-12 is a fully automatic shotgun with the capability to hold 20 rounds in a magazine, which was a very controversial update at this time, because the gun was so stupidly overpowered. At the time of release, this gun could not only hold 20 rounds in a mag, but you could also add the Flechette ammo attachment on top of that, making the gun penetrate through most surfaces, while also reducing the spread of the gun. The AA-12 has since been nerfed, but it is still arguably one of the most overpowered close-range weapons in the game. In Updates 4.4.5, a new game mode was added, Gun Game, which is only accessible through VIP servers to the general public. Later in Update 4.5.b, the new Red Hawk 44 revolver was added to the game. The Red Hawk 44 does 59 to 35 damage, which has an RPM of 400. The next update brought a new map to the game called Bazaar. However, the original Bazaar isn't in the map pool rotation anymore. Its revamp still remains in the game. In Update 4.6.0, also known as the Sniper Update, 2 new snipers were added. These 2 snipers were the M107 and the TRG-42, arguably 2 of the best snipers in the game. With the snipers, a new unique carbine was added to the game, the CAC SRR, Hi Jevin. Finally, in Update 4.7.0, the L115A3 was renamed to the AWM, and FAMAS to FAMAS G2. This update also brought a new unique PDW to the game, the Tommy gun, which has a damage range of 37 to 19 with no attachments, and also had the capability to use extended mags. This gun overall isn't too bad. Update 4.8.0, also known as the Judge, Jury, and Executioner update, added 3 new guns. Obviously, the guns are the Judge, Jury, and Executioner. In the Halloween 2019 update, aka Update 4.9.0, a new game mode was added to the game. This game mode was known as Infection, which is no longer in the game. This update brought an exclusive melee to people who played the event, the Reaper melee. Along with the Reaper, 3 other melees were added to the game, the Jason, the Cricket Bat, and the Hunting Knife. Update 4.10.0 also known as the German Space Gun update, added the G11K2 and the WA-2000, which are both high-ranked guns. Then later in the Israeli weapons update, update 4.11.0, 3 new guns were added: the Uzi, Hey Oblivious, the Micro Uzi, and the Deagle XIX. A new map was added to the map pool at this time too, which was Jungle. And then at the end of 2019, with the 4.12.0 New Year's update, the TAR-21, X95R, and X95 SMG were added to the game. The TAR-21 arguably being the only decent gun of the 3, and having very similar stats to the HK416. And with the 4.15.0 April 2020 update, adding the new DCL-120 AMT Terminator rubber pellets and .223 Remington weapon attachments, this concludes Phantom Forces version 4. On July 4th, 2020, the Independence Day update, 2 new guns were added: the C7A2, which was previously removed in early alpha, and the HK51B, a new carbine LMG hybrid gun. After this update, Phantom Forces didn't really receive any more major updates for several months. The next update was in October, so the game went with no major updates for 3 months, and content creators were starting to complain about stale content, although the majority of the player base still enjoyed the game and the content. In the Halloween update 2020, 4 new guns were added: the PP-19 Bison, the Krinkov, the M79 Thumper, and the new Type 88 assault rifle. The community at the time didn't really enjoy these new guns, and you barely see them used to this day, the Thumper being the exception here. Players at the time also disliked the new spawn system that's being implemented into the game, and also the Halloween specific maps and themes. In update 5.3.0, 5 maps were added into the map pool: Industry, Laboratory, Mall Revamp, Rust Belt, and Farmlands. These new 4 maps were some of the most disliked maps in the game, and it is starting to become clear that Stylus Studios is running out of ideas, and the game overall is going downhill at an alarming rate, although updates persisted. In update 5.4.0, the Winter Update 2020, 4 new guns were added to the game: the K2, the K1A, the K7, and the K14. All of these new guns were pretty well liked and approved by the player base. A new game mode was also added: Hardpoint. Hardpoint, being similar to King of the Hill, has one major difference: the team has to stay on the point in order for it to count for their team. There is no true capturing the objective with this game mode, which made it very unique and fun to play. 4 new melees were also added: the Candy Cane, the Holiday Tea, the Ice Morn, and the Krampus Kirky. With the end of 2020, the game only received 3 major updates, which isn't usual compared to the previous 5 years the game has been worked on. And with update 5.5.0, the New Year's update 2021, 4 new guns were added to the game: the HK416, the Scorpion, the GB22, and the Arm Pistol. These new guns are pretty well liked and viewed as a positive change by the community. With these new guns, 3 new melees were added: the Clonker, the Toy Gun, and the Warhammer. One major case was also added to the game: the Creator Case, Go Buy My Skin. Taking a big leap in time to April 2021, we are going to look at one of the most hated updates of all time in modern Phantom Forces history: the 5.5.5 AF Friendship Forces update. The game added a ton of joke maps and unnecessary joke cosmetics to the game. This upset a ton of the player base because most people didn't like the joke maps and only wanted small little cosmetic changes because the maps ruined the grind for the game. I was personally one of the only few people that enjoyed this update, mostly because I play for fun, not necessarily for the grinding aspect of the game. A new map that is still in rotation was added to the game: Height, which is also another very disliked map. Although, with these negative changes, 2 new melees were added: the Havoc Blade and the Linked Sword. At this point, it seems like Phantom Forces is definitely going in a bad direction, especially with the new negatively approved updates, such as the Friend Forces update, the Halloween update, and the Christmas update. With these new negative changes, Update 5.5.a reverted all of the April Fool's update cosmetic changes, only one day after the update was added. After this change, it was announced that the developers of Phantom Forces were no longer going to add consistent updates, and were going to focus most of their time on development of their new game, Core. Many players admitted defeat and called this change the death of Phantom Forces. Even to this day, only one other update has since been added to Phantom Forces, the 5.6.0 Independence Day update. 7 new guns were added to the game in this update. The KG-99, the Izhevsk PB, the Markov PM, the Gyrojet Mark I, the Gyrojet Carbine, the Rama 1130, and the STG-44. These guns are pretty well received, and with these new guns, one map was added to the game, Paradise. Although Paradise has mixed opinions, overall, players find Paradise to be a decent new map. Although many of the new updates made players dislike the game, or just leave the game altogether, you can't deny that Phantom Forces is one of the best Roblox games of all time. Even through 5 years of development, and even the main developer randomly leaving the dev team, the game still has a consistent 5 to 10,000 players on a day-to-day basis. By today's standards, those numbers don't seem too great, but at the time, the only game beating out Phantom Forces in terms of player base was Jailbreak. Through all the great memories, rage moments, and hardships, I hope Phantom Forces and Stylus Studios still has many good years left to go. To all of you who may be concerned, no, I am not leaving Phantom Forces, and I don't plan to as long as the game is alive. This has been the Antiquity of Phantom Forces.